Approval of the regular minutes of the meeting of September 8th, 2014.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Go ahead.
P1, approval of Housing Authority of Cook County funding requests for rehabilitation of Perlman and Wilczek apartments. The Housing and Homelessness Commission and city staff recommend funding the amount of $150,000 from the city's Home Investment Partnership Grant for the Housing Authority of Cook County Senior Redevelopment Project for 199 units of senior and disabled housing in the Wilczek and Perlman apartments located at 2300 Noyes Court in 1900 Sherman Avenue. Funding is provided by the Home Fund.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a presentation. Ms. Flex.
Good evening, Chairman Rainey and members of the committee. I'm Sarah Flax, Housing and Grants Administrator. This is a request for $150,000 from our home fund for the renovation of the Perlman and Wilczek apartments. This is a substantial rehab of these two buildings. Perlman was built in 1978 and Wilczek was built in 84, so they have significant rehab needs. They're very important in terms of providing affordable housing for seniors and persons with disabilities. It's 199 units total. 159 of those units will be for people whose incomes don't exceed 60% of area median. The remaining 40 units for people whose income doesn't exceed 30%. So these really are some of our people in greatest need of affordable housing. One of the things that's being done as part of the rehab is a really substantial increase in accessible and adaptable units. There will be 20 fully accessible, ADA accessible units. There will be 20 that are adaptable. And there will be 4 units for persons who have sensory disabilities. So this is really an important improvement in accessible housing as well. It's a big project. Total budget is $25.7 million. Construction start date is scheduled for this December with completion in July of 2016. Okay. The biggest source of funding is low-income housing tax credits that will generate approximately $15,750,000 in equity. The public housing capital funds have diminished over the years to the point where it's almost impossible to do any kind of significant rehab with that source. Therefore, this is going and using tax credits as the primary source of the rehab. State tax credits and other sources are going to contribute a little over $6.3 million, and that left a funding gap of $3,649,235. That's a pretty big gap. Evanston could not fill that on its own. However, we're approaching this as a collaborative project with Cook County. So seeing that as the total home request, Cook County will provide $3,499,235 of those dollars, and the City of Evanston request is for $150,000. Now, this is a little used opportunity in the home regs where 2 jurisdictions can collaborate on a project that benefits them both. But what's really important is if Evanston doesn't put its home money in, Cook County can't bring its money in. So what happens here is with our $150,000, for which we'll get credit for helping rehab 150 units, we leverage $170 for every one of those dollars. So we get a project size that there is no way we could fund on our own. Here's Perlman Apartments today. A little bit look at what the exterior will look like and some interior views. Wilczek today.
Sarah, can you tell us how many residents moved into either Perlman or Wilczek from a home in from a house in Evanston or a residence in Evanston?
I don't have those numbers with me, but it
But
is
we know
very
that-
heavily Evanston residents, yes. Well, it has been. They prioritize their projects by geography. I've got Jessica Poyer here from the Housing Authority. She may be able to give more information. Can you?
And first, Alderman Grover, did you have a question?
Just two things, Ms. Flax, thank you.
And then Alderman Holmes.
This is not building new units. This is really a long overdue renovation of existing units.
Correct, it is. Mhm.
And have you ever been involved in a multi-jurisdictional collaboration on something like this?
We have not.
In your career?
But it is, it's being used more and more in Cook County. There are a number of other collaborative interjurisdictional agreements. I believe a Mount Prospect Senior, I think Cook County did a project in Mount Prospect. That was new construction, and it was a Mount Prospect and Cook County providing funding for it wasn't a housing authority project, it was just the Cook County. But it is becoming more and more important as all of our funding decreases. We have to get better at working
Cook
together and
County's
leveraging.
been a good partner on this. Great.
But when we say Cook County, the Housing Authority of Cook County, HAC, is really only suburban Cook County.
Correct,
Yes.
correct.
Okay, just, I mean, people need to understand that it's not the Chicago Housing
Right.
Authority, et cetera.
Right.
Alderman Holmes?
Well, I had 3 questions. Number one, what happens when the rehab starts? Because I've had lots of questions from 1900 Sherman, when they're getting ready, what happens to the seniors? Do we relocate them? How are they taken care of? That's question number one. Who finds the housing for those seniors? And what about seniors who need additional help? Will an aide be able to live with them? Like assistant, they still want to be on their own, but they need additional help. And can that aide be a relative?
I can answer. The plan for the rehab is not all of the units will be empty. They'll be doing it sort of by area, floor, or some, so they'll move. Some residents have, just through attrition and just through change, have moved out. So they haven't been filling the buildings because they are planning on the rehab. But people will be offered the opportunity to take a voucher and go anyplace else, or to move temporarily either within the building or someplace that they will help them find until all the units are rehabbed. So it'll be a range of options. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you on whether or not they can have a live-in helper. I'll have to look into that unless Jessica can answer that.
Well, and the reason why I'm asking is that question came up at the senior meeting over at Fleetwood. One of the seniors there who just needs some additional things, that she can't take care of herself anymore, but she still likes to get around and stuff. And she was asking about a 2-bedroom unit, which I did ask Ms. Shavers to find out information for me on that. But it occurred to me that if that happens with her, that as other seniors may get into that same place where they still want to be on their own, but they need additional help. And what would be the process then for someone living with them? And if they had a relative that could assist them in that way, would that be possible? Because, it's just something that we need to think about.
We can look into that if Jessica does not have that answer for you. I'm not sure. My understanding is all the units are 1 bedroom. So,
Right, those
Let's
but they're
have Jessica get up here and tell us. Sorry. Could you introduce yourself and what your role is?
Hi, I'm Jessica Poyer. I'm the Assistant Director of Compliance and Management with the Housing Authority. Now, if you'd like me to speak to your live-in aid question, as long as that person, if someone needs a live-in aid, we'd have to have that person approved through our 504 section coordinator. If they're approved and they still have to pass the background test,
Right.
then they could absolutely move in. It could be a relative, but there
can.
are some rules in terms of we need to make sure that that person isn't taking on that role as a live-in aid just because they want to add them
No.
Well, they've
yeah. already been through that process, so I'm learning a lot about it. Not that I wanted to,
Yeah.
but, so they've been through that process, and they've been approved as knowing that they need the additional help. So that has happened already.
Yeah, so absolutely, then it could be a
Okay.
family member.
Okay.
So, Sarah, anything else? Do you have anything else?
I'm just requesting approval of the funding.
Great, great. All right, so this is for action. Oh, Alderman Fisk, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say both of these buildings are in my ward, and we've worked really hard learning from past experience that it's good to plan ahead so that there are vacant units in the building. The renovations will be done by tier so that people will have an opportunity to move within the building rather than moving out of the building. If they like their new apartment better, and correct me if I'm wrong, if they like their new apartment better, they can apply to stay in there, or they can be put on the list to go back to their unit. So there's a lot of flexibility in there, and I think this is really great. It's so long overdue, and the units are going to be wonderful and clean and beautiful and updated, and it's a huge project, and I appreciate your support on it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is, Alderman Fisk, and they've been discussing it. And to answer to your question, Alderman Rainey, a lot of our seniors from Evanston live there, so I do know that. However, as the seniors age, they get kind of confused, and so moving out where you've been living 30 years is not an easy piece, and so that becomes an issue as well.
Wait, are there people in the senior building that have been there
There
30
have been people
years?
that have been longer than that.
Really?
Yes.
How,
Yes.
so do
From
we
the
know
beginning.
the age range of people
We got some in
that
the over
aren't
90.
disabled, but the seniors? Do we know the age range?
Well, I know that there are some who are well in their 90s.
Yeah, I have some
don't
that
have
I
a
have-
split on that. We can get that if you'd like.
Yeah.
It would be fascinating
Yeah.
to see. And are the seniors, are the residents involved in the planning or in the displacement method? I mean, are
Well,
they-
they've been engaged in a series of meetings to keep them informed, and I think that's very important, and the Housing
Very
Authority has
important,
been
yeah.
working very hard to do that, because they do get anxious and they do get
Very
concerned,
anxious.
and that doesn't help any of us. There are a number of projects also just to engage residents in everything, from community gardens that have been developed to just all sorts of activities, because that's a really important thing for all of our seniors, that they're engaged in their community. And so that's continuing as well.
Because over time, we've had issues with tenant issues and management issues. Hopefully that's.
And elevators, and the elevators will work.
Definitely elevated. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. There was a motion and a second. All those in favor of P1, say aye.
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 Okay.
Any opposed? Hearing none.
Okay, P2. Ordinance 115-0-14, granting a special use for commercial indoor recreation at 1017 Davis Street. The Zoning Board of Appeals and the city staff recommends the adoption of ordinance 115-0-14, granting a special use permit for commercial indoor recreation, Tier 1 Training Center at 1017 Davis Street.
Second.
Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. One thing I did want to highlight about the proposed ordinance, there have been issues with regard to sound and fitness facilities, so there is a soundproofing requirement in this ordinance. So hopefully we won't have that as an issue. In addition, I have spoken to the applicants, and I guess that they are trying to get it open as quickly as possible. So they were requesting suspension of the rules. I don't know if anybody would have a concern or an issue with that, but if that's acceptable, I'd like to move that we suspend the rules so they could get going and get open in October.
Were there any complaints from adjacent businesses regarding the use?
I'm not aware of any complaints, on this.
Well, I'm just really happy that you put in the soundproofing piece in the ordinance, because that is important.
I can't take credit for it, but if it wasn't there, I would have tried
Great.
it. It was in there, so,
We learn from current conditions.
Absolutely.
yeah.
We're smart.
All right.
All right, all those in favor of recommending this to the council, including suspension of the rules?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Next item is P3, Ordinance 116014, granting a special use for an animal hospital, Toiber Veterinarian Services LLC at 1815 Central Street. This is an animal hospital that currently exists that's with a new name. So, any discussion? Any concern? Any, nothing? All right. Alderman Grover? No? All right. All those in favor of recommending this to the council, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? P4? Wilson? Up, that's for action. Well, that concludes our, I just didn't think this could possibly be over. All right. All right, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, we're finished.
And we will start in, what, 10 minutes?
We'll start at 22, around 20, between 22 and 7:45. Get out of here.